Alright guys, so here's another Into the Infinity Verse that I had done on Vlare, but wasn't able to save it, so I figured I'd do a redo here, and since I've already done like, what, 3 Into the Infinity Verse videos, might as well make it a fourth time, right? Anyway, so let's get started so let's talk about this one, the Cybertron Homeworld War. Now the Cybertron Homeworld War is something that's going to be referenced a lot. I don't think you'll see it because even I'm like, this is really sprawling. I don't know if Jason and I have the time to write this. But in the Infinityverse, which is the fanfiction, shared fan... I've said it enough. You guys already know what it is if you've been here long enough. But basically what it is in the Cybertron Homeworld War, it was a 500-year conflict. It was a couple hundred-year conflict between the gems of Homeworld, the gems and the diamonds of Homeworld, and Cybertron. Now, keep in mind, when I say Cybertron, this is before the Great Civil War between the Autobots and Decepticons. So there's still an Autobot High Council, there's still a Prime in charge, it's Zeta Prime, yeah, Zeta Prime is in charge, and what's going on in here, what's going on in this story is essentially, in this war, in our continuity, is that what had happened was that Homeworld was at this point... Homeworld is one of the oldest empires, because there's a ton of galactic empires in the Infinityverse. You've got the Jorians from Tenchi Muyo, you've got the Salamandrians from TMNT, you've got also the Conquerors, who are like Dominator and Hater, but Homeworld is one of the oldest empires in the galaxy. Homeworld and Cybertron are some of the oldest races in the Infinityverse. So it was only a matter of time before Cybertron and Homeworld went to war. So what had happened was that Homeworld attacked Cybertron. They tried to lay claim to Cybertron for 2 reasons. The first being is that they wanted Energon. They believed that Energon could help expand their empire to new levels. They honestly believed that they could expand their empire even further energy-wise with the power of Energon. And at first they were like, hey, Cybertron, we could work a trade deal between us. You give us Energon, and we'll give you, like, Homeworld tech that you can use. And the Autobot High Council were like, get the fuck out of here. We don't need you. We don't need outside help. And the Energon, in case you haven't noticed, is our lifeblood. We give Energon to you, we're cutting our own existence. So, get the fuck out. So Homeworld was like, well, you don't want to give it? We'll take it. So Homeworld was the aggressor of this war. And essentially what had happened was that, they wanted the Energon to see, because they believed that Energon could not only, like, soup up their weapons, but also increase gem productivity. Like, they wanted to use it for injectors, for new kindergartens. So, could you imagine Energon empowered gems? That was kind of the Diamond's whole thinking for this. So, from here, the gems and Homeworld went to war. You know, the 13 colonies of Cybertron were also dragged into this war. As for other galactic empires, they kind of, like, stayed out of it, because they were like, it's Cybertron and Homeworld warring it out. It's pretty much like our equivalent to the Kree-Skrull War in Marvel Comics. That's what pretty much it was like the Kree-Skrull War, only this ended a while ago. But anyway, so in this, I said that there were 2 reasons. One was the Energon, but there was another reason that that Homeworld wanted Cybertron, or something from Cybertron. They wanted the Enigma of Configuration, which is a device that creates combiners. Combinders. So they wanted the Enigma of Configuration, and when they actually got it, they actually stole it in a battle. And that's how fusions, at least in the Infinityverse, are born. Fusions are created through the Enigma of Configuration when gems use it, so that's where fusion is born. But the problem was, it didn't have the same effect as it did with combiners. You see, when combiners, become one into one being, the difference is that when combiners do it, it's all like one mind all working together. But the problem was when they created fusions, they created a completely different personality when gems were used for fusion. When fusion was used through the Enigma, and it was given to all gems that they could use this power now. Because they believed only certain number of Transformers can do it. Imagine if we could use fusions for our units all at once. That would be great. That would be so cool. What had happened was that didn't really exactly have the same effect, because, like I said, when the gems were exposed to the Enigma of configuration, essentially, it had a different effect, because these new fusions had their own personalities and thoughts and feelings, because now they were, like, conjoined with other people, so they could feel another person. And that was kind of, like, adverse, because the diamonds didn't... Because some of the fusions were starting to like staying as fusions, and that was really starting to bring a lot of independent thought to a lot of the gems, and that was, like, we can't have that. So they kind of, quote-unquote, lost the Enigma. Instead, they chucked it off somewhere. You could probably guess where 1 in 1,000 chances where it landed. So they chucked it off and said, "Oh, we lost the Enigma," and fusions were banned. Fusions were considered a cheap tactic to make weak gems stronger, and that was burned into the rhetoric of all the gems. That was burned into the rhetoric from then on after the war. So let's get into the other major players of this war. Like I said, this is before the Autobots Decepticon Civil War. So at this point, Megatron is still like a free he's still like a public figure, and he's like a freedom fighter and a voice for the people. So Megatron is still on that, and he actually is like, if the Autobot High Council had done their job had a little more backbone to stop Homeworld from attacking the 13 colonies, then, we wouldn't be in this measure. We wouldn't be in here. We wouldn't be in this mess had it not been for the Autobot High Council, like, taking the fight to Homeworld. Because at the start, Cybertron was very much playing, like, the defense against it all. And at the same time, Orion, Optimus is still Orion at this point. And Orion's, like, feeling into that, but he's kind of like, maybe we can try to peace talk or something. And Megatron's like, it's a little too far gone for peace, my friend. We are past that point. And on the Diamond side, Pink is still like, this is still a young Pink who wants her own colony, and this is her first time being exposed to a actual full-blown goddamn war. And she always believed that that Homeworld was like, hey, we're unstoppable, we're doing the right thing, we're the most powerful beings in the universe, but then they get humbled by the Cybertronians. A lot in some battles. But yeah, that's the thing, is that, where was I going with this? Pink is still, this was sowing the seeds for, like, Pink being, human life, life is outside of gems are kind of important. So this was kind of sowing the seeds of that in our continuity. So Pink Diamond actually was the one who lost the Enigma. She actually shot it off into space because she was like, yeah, we shouldn't have this power, and I don't like how, yellow, diamond, and blue, yellow, diamond, and white, yellow, blue, and white are treating some of the soldiers when they fuse. It's not okay. So she shot it off into space and was like, hey, I put it away for safekeeping, but we lost it. Oh well. Anyway. So you're probably wondering, well, where does the war, how does the war all end? Because the war goes on for a while. Well, the war ends, essentially, in a final battle, and in here, Megatron challenges Yellow Diamond. He challenges Yellow Diamond in a head-on fight, and the two battle, and Megatron defeats Yellow Diamond in one-on-one combat. And not only does that have a physical, like, morale effect for the Cybertronians, because they were fighting hard, but it was like a toss-up at this point in the war. But the reason why this was the final battle was because not only had Megatron showed that Cybertronians can win the war, it's had a psychological effect too. The gems were like, maybe our leaders are not all great, maybe they're not all powerful, they can lose to someone who isn't a gem. So Yellow, this also had a psychological effect on Yellow because she always claimed to be like the best warrior and the greatest fighter, but now she's been humbled by someone who's not even a Prime. Zeta wasn't doing shit, and Megatron just comes in and humbles her in. Let me restate that. He humiliates her in the fight between them, and that just completely breaks morale in the Gem War. So from then on, so at this point, White steps in and is like, I'm very disappointed in Yellow, but she realizes that now that the fire's really kicking in, and it's clear that dragging this war out is not going to do Homeworld any more favors. They don't have the Enigma, they can't get the Energon. It's over. The war is just going to drag on, and it's just going to be pointless. And eventually, White realizes, even if we keep fighting after this battle, we're going to eventually lose. But she doesn't want to say that out loud. She tells Blue and Yellow. She doesn't tell Pink, but she's like, look, if we keep this up, we can keep fighting. We can win some battles here and there, but we're going to lose. If we keep this up, the Homeworld will be destroyed. We cannot fight the Cybertronians anymore. So at that point, a ceasefire is announced, and Cybertron, and from there, Megatron's movement increases because he's the one who defeated Yellow Diamond in combat, and essentially won the war for everybody. So, yeah, that's where Megatron's Decepticon movement grew a lot more power, at least in our continuity. So, there you go, guys. That is pretty much the compact history of the Cybertron Homeworld War. And there is some, discretion between Cybertronians and gems. Now, there isn't any between the Homeworld gem, not the Homeworld gems, the Earth gems, like Pearl, Garnet, Amethyst. All of them don't really have a lot of hatred for the gems because none of them were really born at that time. Amethyst was born on Earth. Ruby and Sapphire weren't formed yet. Neither was Pearl. So they don't have that kind of prejudice for, in that war. As do Peridot and Lapis, who are like, yeah, that's a little before our time, so we don't have that. Bismuth, though, Bismuth's okay. She wasn't formed at that point either, so there's no real prejudice between the Autobots and gems. The gems of Earth. But as for the other gems out in space, it's a little dodgy out there. So, that was the whole idea of this, is that it was like I said, I don't think we'll ever do a whole story, a whole miniseries about the Cybertron Homeworld War, because it's so goddamn expansive. And writing a war story and doing all these battles is really difficult. It's really difficult. That's why, even in the Kree-Skrull War event, you don't see a lot of the Kree-Skrull War. So that's the big thing with this. So I figured, yeah, it'd be kind of fun just to talk about a brief history lesson, because this is kind of a vital thing. Like I said, it's the Infinity Verse is equivalent to the Kree-Skrull War. Only this one didn't drag on for, from thousands of years. This one didn't drag on for a couple millennia and longer than it fucking should have. So, anyway, so there you go, guys. That is pretty much the whole story. That is your whole story for the Cybertron Homeworld War. So comment below, let me know what you guys thought of it. And once again, I'm Mr. Multiverse. See you next time in the Multiverse.